What's going on, YouTube fam? This is the Wealth Investing Network. We do this for the win. You're getting a sneak peek into my stock portfolio and a sneak peek into my research on stocks. Today, we're talking about Sumo Logic. Before we really get into it, there's something I have to ask you to do. That's please hit that like button, turn it blue, drop a comment, subscribe if you are new. These things really help the channel grow, and that helps me create better content for you. That's a win-win, and we like that here at the Wealth Investing Network. So I'm relatively new to Sumo Logic, and Sumo Logic is relatively new to the market. They had their IPO in mid-September. Like a lot of recent IPOs, there's a lot of volatility at first, and to me that just represents people's excitement about the stock. It seems like people were very excited at first, took a little dip, and it kind of benefited from a period where a lot of tech stocks just soared. I mean, this one more than doubled. The price was in the teens and it went all the way up to 40. So when you look at the past month, it's just gotten crushed. It's down more than 45%. Let's jump into the website. When I'm researching a company, this is one of the places I like to start. So this is a tech company that specializes in data management, security, intelligence, monitoring, things of that nature. I like to say that we're in the information age, and so big companies rely on data more than ever, and Sumo Logic is one of these companies that says, hey, we can help you with your data, we can analyze it for you, and that'll help you better target your customers. And they also have a security piece, which is more important than ever when we're talking about data and the cloud. But this is a very competitive field, and I'm seeing some of the things that their competitors say as well. We've talked about Splunk on the channel before. We've talked about DataDog as well. Check out my other videos on these types of stocks if you're interested. Obviously, these companies have different nuances, but they also have a lot of overlapping products and overlapping functions of their business that they do. I'm going to scroll through their list of customers here, and you're going to see a lot of names that you're familiar with. This is a good indicator, a positive sign that they are doing good business. But of course, it's not the end all be all. Keep that in mind. All right, we're going to move on. So the sell-off or correction in tech is not the only reason why this stock is down. They actually reported earnings recently. They definitely grew their revenue, and there's a lot of positive things here in this earnings report. I've taken a look through their financials, and we're going to get to that a little later on in the video. I just want to jump into a couple of articles. So they launched on the stock market about the same time as Snowflake, and we talked about Snowflake before and how hot that stock was. But when it comes to these big data companies, a lot of enterprises have been moving some of their on-premises type things, like in data centers, to the cloud for better speed and adaptability. Sumo Logic is one of the companies that's just saying, hey, we're just doing straight with the cloud. And potentially that could give them an edge on the competition. But with this addressable market of almost 50 billion, there are a lot of other players. And one of the companies that's posting the strongest results is DataDog. And when it comes to these tech companies, a lot of them spend so much money that they don't make profits at the end of the day. And that's fine for a while. So what investors look at is growth. As long as you're growing, you can be a little unprofitable. But Sumo Logic had a big deceleration from 2019 to 2020. They're still growing. 30-something% growth is nothing to sneeze at, but DataDog is almost doubling every year. I'll leave a link to these articles in the description, but I kind of want to get into my own analysis of where I might potentially buy the stock. But one more thing I want to show you is just that they plummeted after earnings, and they also said that they were going to acquire DF Labs. So even with great results where they had revenue ahead of the consensus estimate, I think maybe just the timing of the announcement was a factor, and maybe investors weren't impressed with their acquisition of DF Labs. I mean, this could very likely benefit Sumo Logic in terms of security, but financial terms were not disclosed. Maybe they overpaid for it. We'll just have to see. Okay, look, I'll just come on out and say it. I'm up on this company. I'm bullish. I think the company's going to do well, but I think the stock could get punished for a little while longer. The articles mention their competitors, DataDog and Splunk. And while if you look at Splunk right now, they're technically up in the past year, but that doesn't factor in that this was the height of the fear of the worldwide health crisis. If you zoom out a little bit, you can see that they're below where they were for most of 2020. One of the favorites in terms of these types of stocks is DataDog. When we zoom to the last month, they're down over 20%. I'm bullish on the sector in general, and I think Sumo Logic will benefit. I actually own a share of DataDog, and you can see my average cost here. I also own a share of Splunk. And I think even though a lot of people kind of view tech stocks as the stay-at-home stocks, I think the data companies will actually be better recovery plays. But I want to remind you, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. If you're here to follow my journey, great, because these videos are for entertainment. And you've got to do your own research when it comes to buying and selling stocks because this stuff is risky. So if you're new to my channel, I highly recommend you check out my How to Analyze Stocks video, because I want to move quickly through this analysis that I've created just based on rough estimates. So we've got the stock prices here, the market caps. The market is actually valuing DataDog as the biggest company, but we're going to skip down to their revenue just so I can show you that Splunk is bringing in the most revenue. Over the last 12 months, they brought in $2.23 billion. But we'll get back to that in a second because I want to talk about the PE ratios or price to earnings ratios. These companies aren't quite profitable right now. Sumo Logic has negative earnings, so their price to earnings ratio is negative. Splunk has had positive earnings, but they really got hit hard by the worldwide health crisis. Check my links in the description where I get into it a little more. But anyway, DataDog is just eking out positive earnings. The average PE ratio for the S&P 500 has historically been 20. These days, it might be closer to 40. DataDog is super high, which basically means it's a growing company, and this isn't a useful metric. So a better metric is the price to sales ratio. This means for every dollar of revenue that these companies bring in, this is the multiple you're paying for the stock. Splunk and Sumo Logic have kind of easy numbers here, where you can see the multiple that you're paying, and you can see it's around 10. So at these prices, you're paying a premium that's slightly higher than the average for tech stocks. And with DataDog, you're really paying a premium. But the reason to pay a premium is very impressive growth. Like I said, if you got a company that's doubling every year or year and a half, that is a reason to pay a multiple, especially if they're heading towards real profitability. Like after all their operations, taxes, debt, there's actually some earnings at the end of the day, unlike these other companies. But getting back to the multiple that you pay for the stock, I don't want to just compare it to the average for tech companies, and DataDog and Sumo Logic don't have enough history to really compare it to themselves. So I'm jumping to macro trends, and we're going to look at the price to sales ratio over time for Splunk because they have a lot more history. So you can see here, there was a time where Splunk was popping. People were willing to pay a plus 20 multiple for this stock. But over time, people were more willing to pay a multiple between 7 and 10. And so we're going to jump into Webull here. This is why I actually bought the dip on Splunk. We're here in Webull so I can show you some technical indicators. I'm going to bring in the simple moving averages. These are indicators that lag behind the actual stock price. This gives us an idea of where the stock has been and where the trend might be going. The green line is the 20-day moving average, so you can see it follows the actual stock price more closely. The red line is the 50-day moving average. You can see it's a little smoother. And the orange is the 200-day moving average. And so what we're seeing is that Splunk actually broke trend. They were on an uptrend for a very long time, kind of like we saw in Robinhood. But lately, they've been in a downtrend. This is the opposite of what I like to see. In an uptrend, you want to see the 20-day above the 50-day, above the 200-day. But I'll bring in one more indicator, and that's the RSI, or Relative Strength Index. Usually a stock is overbought at around 70 and it's oversold below 30. So you can see my position here. I bought this stock when it was oversold and when the price to sales ratio was kind of back to normal, or at least normal for the history of the stock. Jumping into Sumo Logic, they don't have a 200-day moving average because they haven't been around for 200 days. They've pretty much established a downtrend and they're just about oversold. Now, if you bought Sumo Logic the last time they were oversold, you saw their run up all the way to 40. I'm definitely putting this stock on my watch list. I think the multiple that you're paying for the stock is not that high. Sumo Logic is actually growing. Their growth is decelerating, but they're at a comparable multiple to their biggest competitor, and I think they're going to have a wave up. But if I do buy this, I'm going to set a stop loss because there could be a lot of volatility. And Sumo Logic insiders have been unable to sell their shares for the last 180 days. And so there's a possibility that mid-March through the end of March, we could see some insider selling. And that would put downward pressure on the stock as well. So I'm cautiously entering into this, but I would nibble and I'll give you an update if I actually do so. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of these companies? I actually did this video based on a comment from a subscriber. So if there's other companies you want to know about, please subscribe and leave a comment. While you're there, hit that like button. Check the description for my other videos, all the things that help the YouTube AI. But thank you so much for watching. Oh, and I meant to say this last video, shout out to my Canadian subscribers. Anyway, see you in the next video.